three kids were very small. In fact, one of them was a baby, the others were a little bit older. And whenever we needed to go somewhere, I would take as much stuff as I possibly could. And a lot of you moms can relate to this. I wanted to have everything I could possibly need for them. Bottles, diapers, toys, even a playpen, if I could stuff it in there, whatever I could get into the car. And it was worth it. It made our stay more enjoyable, and we could stay longer. Our stuff means, our stuff means a lot to us, doesn't it? And especially when we are away from home, we will take as much stuff as we can to make us feel as much at home as possible.
Now, sometimes you've got to move. You've got to get a bigger house. Why? Too much stuff. You've got to move all your stuff. And maybe put some of your stuff in storage. Now, imagine that. There's a whole industry based on keeping an eye on your stuff. Enough about your stuff. Let's talk about other people's stuff. Did you ever notice when you go to somebody else's house, you never quite feel 100% at home? You know why? No room for your stuff. Somebody else's stuff is all over the place. And what awful stuff it is. Where did they get this stuff? And if you have to stay overnight at someone's house, you know, unexpectedly, and they give you a little room to sleep in that they don't use that often. Someone died in it 11 years ago, and they haven't moved any of his stuff. Or wherever they give you to sleep, usually right near the bed there's a dresser, and there's never any room on the dresser for your stuff.
Have you ever thought about why you have so much stuff? See if it goes to the right slide. It's not going to the right slide today. I need those in please again. Okay, here we go. Why do you have so much stuff? Or why you have more than you need? What if we were to ask God, why do I have so much stuff? Or why do I have extra? Or why do I have more than I need? It might change the way we all look at our stuff. In fact, it may give us a sense and purpose about why we have the stuff we have. Most often, though, we find ourselves thinking, I want more stuff. I need to get that because so-and-so has it. Well, I need to change this because they have this and it's better. I need to have something. We're always comparing what we have to what others have around us, don't we? And as long as you keep thinking, I need to have that because so-and-so has it, you're creating an artificial sense of meaning. Think about that. And you'll find yourself constantly bumping up against your income. Because that income is now, it's not providing for what you're wanting to get all the time. For example, it would be nice to have a bigger place. Well, a lot of people think that. It would be nice to have a nicer looking home. But instead we start thinking, I need to get a bigger place. And the reason is, we have the smallest house of all our friends. Or it would be nice to have a newer car. Maybe you need a bigger car or something. It's practical. But what if we thought, I have to buy a new car? I'm embarrassed to get anyone ride in my car. After a while, all our wants start turning into needs. I need to have this. Everything sounds legitimate on it. And the funny thing is, we will still feel we don't have everything we need. A lot of us experience that every day. There's something missing. Now, many of you may be thinking, this doesn't apply to me. I'm not rich. I don't even have a paycheck right now. I'm looking for work. But I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about the gifts and the talents and our stuff. Because this culture that we live in rewards our wants. We see it on TV, internet, newspapers, billboard. You want this? You should have it, right? It rewards our wants with a justified, legitimate need. So we can easily be misled to believe that our wants should now become our needs. And we create that artificial sense of need. We tell ourselves, if I only get this, I would be content. Now, I know everybody has felt that on something. But we find that we still don't have peace in our life. And we still worry about our money, and we continue to want and want and want. Even though we follow a God that has set us free from the bondage of this world. Now, what's wrong with that picture? We all go through this. There's different times in our life we all fall into that. But why? Jesus talks about this very thing. I will be reading from Luke 12, 13 to 22, if you want to follow along. We're going to look at a parable about the rich and the poor. Then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." Now here's a guy that feels that he's entitled to his inheritance now. And he wants Jesus to tell his brother to give him his fair share. What's Jesus' answer? He replies, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" Then Jesus turned to the crowd and said this, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." Jesus was warning everyone about becoming greedy. Now, this next thing is very important for all of you to understand as Jesus defines greed. It's hard to see greed in the mirror. Think about that. Now, we can see greed on other people. That's pretty easy. Oh, man, he's greedy. You can tell. Look at how he talks. Look at what he's got. He never shares. But for some reason, we can't see it in ourselves. Have you ever heard anyone say, "I'm just too greedy"? It can be very hard to see in yourself. Now, greedy people usually say things like this. "Oh, I'm careful about my money. I'm a great money manager for the funds, the budget I have. I do really good. Oh yeah, I save all the time for things." Now, doesn't that sound familiar to all of us? We all say that. Greed is a subtle thing that happens. And Jesus is warning us to be careful. He's telling us to beware that anyone can become greedy. Greed is basically wanting something. And when the time is just right, we're in the right place, we can all fall into being greedy. talking about the emotional impact that adrenaline just starts pumping and get greedy. It's on all of us. And we can easily slip into a thinking process, thinking our life is all about the abundance of possessions. Jesus uses a parable to explain. Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. Now here's a man, a rich man, that has more than enough, okay? Go ahead, Jim. Did it freeze? Oh, it's one of those days. Okay, so I'll just continue. More than enough. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Boy, what a problem. He had extra. Now, many of us are thinking, well, just look around you. There are people starving. There are people that can use this grain. But remember, you can't see greed on yourself. This man is assuming that his extra was for him. Just like many times, some of us think that maybe an extra paycheck you get, or you've got some extra food that someone's given you. You know, things come up and you're like, oh, finally, I can enjoy something extra. It's like an automatic thought process inside of us to think that when we have extra, it's for ourselves. Let's reward ourselves. Now this guy comes up with a plan, which when we have extra, we kind of do that too, don't we? On how to spend it. Luke 12:18. Then he said, I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. This guy had a great plan to get rich. He tore down his perfectly good barns to build bigger ones, just so he could keep the extra for himself. Luke 12:19. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. He did the smart thing. We hear it all the time. Plan for your future, right? Make sure there's enough for you later. But what we're about to discover is that he just didn't plan for everything. There was a fatal flaw in this guy's thinking. He planned to take care of himself. He was thinking about how he saw his world. He thought about saving this extra would make it so he could plan for a life of leisure and wealth for him. He saw everything he had and all his stuff were for him alone. The problem wasn't the fact that this man was rich at all. That's not what Jesus is saying to us. The problem was he did not understand why he was rich. He saw it as preparing for his future. But in verse 20, we come to a halt. Rachel. This very night I will take your life away from you. Now wait a minute. A fool? Why was he a fool? He planned ahead. We hear that in our society all the time. Goodness. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? So his life's going to be taken away. Who gets all the stuff that he prepared for? Now what if we were to ask this question about our own life? Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? Think about that. If you were to die today, if you were to leave this world, where would your stuff go? Who gets it? Because the truth is, someone will get it. It happens to everyone. The things that you've worked hard for, the things that you've saved for, that you've planned for, will go to someone after you're gone. You see, just as the rich man had no control over the abundance he got from all his crops, he couldn't control the weather, He couldn't control insects that would come and consume it. And he had no control over the years that had been given to him by God. He kind of forgot some things. He made 3 wrong assumptions. First, he assumed that he was the source of all his extra. Second, he assumed that all his extra was just for him. And third, he made the big mistake of assuming that the abundance that he had was the same as the abundance of years that he had. But he was wrong on all 3 counts. Now here's the moral of this story. That is how it will be for anyone who stores things away for himself but is not rich in God's eyes. Wow. This is a warning for those who are not living for God. Jesus wants us to be careful of not wanting more and more. Because anyone can fall into the trap of greed.
Hey, what are you doing, Carlin? What's the matter?
This is the matter.
What is it? Is it a bill? Is it a late notice? Are they repossessing the car?
Of course. It was sitting on my desk when I came back from lunch. It's from the HR department, and it's not payday.
What do you need?
This is all pay tape.
Are you getting fired?
Well, what else would it be? It's not like the good news has been rolling in lately.
Well, maybe we should look on the bright side. Maybe it's a garnishment of wages.
Maybe. One way to find out. It's a check.
A check?
It's a bonus check from the Sanderson deal. Thank you for your hard work and your benefit to the company. Yada, yada, yada. Enclosed, you'll find your check for $15,000.
John, honey, do you know what this means?
It means we have extra money.
I didn't get a dress for the Christmas parties after all.
I can watch the bowl games in high-definition TV.
Do you think we should use some of this on those?
What? Those are bills. We pay bills with regular money. This is extra money. Okay?
Extra money?
Yeah, extra money. You know, the money like you find in your coat pocket or your sofa cushions.
That is a big sofa cushion.
It makes not the same difference. It's money we weren't supposed to have. Money we weren't expecting. So we can't really be held responsible for not using it responsibly.
So I get my dress.
No, yeah. Get to watch the bowl games in my plasma high-definition television.
All right. I get a little bling bling for the dress.
Okay. Jewelry.
That reminds me. What about Angela? She lost everything in that storm, and she's in an awful position now, and this money might be a sign.
You know, you're right. I said, well, why don't we set aside $5,000? Just in case it ever happens to us.
You are so wise. And you thought you were good with money. Does it have to be 5,000?
Well, yeah. We can just do that. Besides, when's the last time a disaster ever happened to us?
Paul shares what happens when believers understand this parable. Now, I want to tell you, dear brothers and sisters, what God in His kindness has done for the churches of Macedonia. Though they have been going through much trouble and hard times, their wonderful joy and deep poverty have overflowed in rich generosity. For I can testify that they gave not only what they could afford, but far more. And they did it of their own free will. They begged us again and again for the gracious privilege of sharing in the gift of the Christians in Jerusalem. Best of all, They went beyond our highest hopes, for their first action was to dedicate themselves to the Lord and to us for whatever directions God might lead them. They understood the spiritual act and impact of giving. When they saw a need, they jumped at the chance to help. They saw a need as an opportunity. When we stretch ourselves in giving, we experience God's grace and we build our faith. Jesus says, this is the only way you can keep your riches from being lost. Let me say that again. This is the only way you can keep your riches from being lost. You will be storing treasures in heaven that last forever. Imagine how our lives would change if we would think this way. Imagine how our families would be if we would think this way. And imagine how the church would reach out to this community if we would think this way. Let's pray. Lord, it's hard to see when we become greedy. We can justify it so easily, especially want something so bad. But it changes our whole perspective on everything. We don't see the needs anymore of other people. We just see our own. We don't see the opportunities that be placed around us to help others with what we have. We just see what they can do for us. We ask you to help us see through that. Help us see when we become greedy, Lord. Help us see you first in everything. In everything.